Rasasi Hawas Black. This is a fragrance that really took the fragrance community by storm when it was originally released. I'm a little late to the party, but I am so glad to finally have this one in the collection, get my nose on it, and let you know what I think of this fragrance. Before we get started though, if you enjoy this kind of content, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel so that you can stay up to date on everything that I post from here going forward. So taking a look at the presentation of the box, it's just a normal cardboard box. It's black, it reads Hawas Black on the front there, and it's kind of a black and gold design with some snake-like scales that go around the box. The bottle itself is going to be your standard Hawas presentation, same shape bottle, same design with that snake going around the cap. However, the juice on this one is a lot darker than what I'm used to with the Hawas line. You get a very ambery colored juice there inside this bottle. Overall, I think that this design looks very classy. I really like what they're doing with that black and gold. Just based off the presentation alone, I would assume this is going to be a much darker of a fragrance, a lot bolder and more masculine of a fragrance as well. The fragrance was launched by the House of Rasasi in 2024. It's described as a fruity aromatic fragrance, and it features main accords of woody, citrusy, and mossy accords. The top notes on this one include bergamot, pineapple, and grapefruit. The middle notes on this one include patchouli, jasmine, and cedarwood. And the base notes include oak moss, woody notes, and amber. Now, from what I've heard about this fragrance online, I'm anticipating that this is going to be somewhat in the vein of a Ventus / Hasselblad. Now, I will be completely transparent with y'all. I have not gotten my nose on Hasselblad. I've smelled an impression of it, but I've never gotten my nose on the original. However, I am very familiar with a Ventus, so I do understand what that style of a DNA is trying to represent. It's kind of hard doing these first impressions when you've seen people talk about the fragrance so much, so I'm trying my best to go into this with an open mind and not necessarily have my mind made up about what the fragrance is going to smell like, but I definitely am anticipating a fruity, very woody, very earthy style of a fragrance. With that being said, let's go ahead and get this one in the air and see what that atomizer is looking like. Do a couple sprays here. Atomizer is really nice. It's not pressurized or anything fancy, but it does get the job done. Ooh. In the air, I'm really enjoying this one. It's coming across very fruity, very woody. I'm definitely picking up on a heavy dose of that pineapple, that juicy fruitiness in the opening. I'm definitely getting a lot of that oak moss as well. It's already smelling pretty earthy just in the air, so I would anticipate that once I get this one on skin, that note is going to be even more amplified. Definitely in the air, this one is smelling a lot juicier and a lot fresher than I anticipated. I really thought going into this was going to be a much darker of a scent. I think the presentation of the bottle was definitely kind of putting me in that mindset. This one is smelling really fresh, surprisingly fresh actually. But with that being said, I am really enjoying the way that it's smelling in the air, and I want to see what it's going to smell like on my skin. Now, I've heard that this one is an absolute monster when it comes to performance, so I'm anticipating that my living room is going to be smelling like Hawas Black probably for the rest of the night. I haven't even put my nose to it yet, but one thing I do want to note is look at that oil sheen that is on my hand. This is described as an eau de parfum, but honestly, I would not be surprised if this was more parfum to extrait concentration, because this is a lot of oil in this fragrance. Off of my skin, I'm still getting that pineapple. I'm still getting the juiciness and the citrusy nature from that opening, but the woods and those earthy notes are way more predominant. I'm definitely getting a lot of that cedar wood, those woody accords, as well as that patchouli and that oak moss, giving it a very green and earthy nuance. Now, just going off of the impression that I've smelled of Hasselblad and the numerous times that I have sampled and had decants of Creed Ventus, this is definitely in that same vein of fragrance. So if you like those style of scents, you will definitely like this one. However, this is not a direct clone in my opinion. This one is definitely taking its own path. It's doing its own thing. I do not think it would be redundant at all if you already own one of those fragrances. Now, if you're one of those people out there who already has a million and one versions of Creed Aventus, you have all the Club de Nuit Intense fragrances, you have a bunch of those off non-supremacy fragrances, this one is probably going to be redundant for you. But if you aren't that fragrance collector and you don't have that many of these fruity, woody, earthy kind of a scent, this is definitely one that I would recommend checking out. It's definitely coming across as a fresh fragrance. The fruits are starting to die down a little more the more it's on my skin, and I'm getting a lot more of the woods and those earthy nuances. Overall, I think that if you are looking for a fresh fragrance that you could really wear year round, I think this is definitely one to look at. I would still reach for this in the fall. I would still reach for this in the winter. The only time I think I probably would not reach for this is in the dead heat of summer. I typically do not like to wear fragrances that are this heavy, this woody in the summertime, but on a summer night, this one would be an absolute hit. Because of how woody and earthy the fragrance leans, this one is definitely very masculine in my mind, and even a little bit mature if you ask me. Now, I'm not saying a young man could not pull this off. At the end of the day, you wear what you want and you wear it when you want to, but I just don't see anyone maybe below the age of 25 really being able to get down with this fragrance. But for those of you out there who are 25 plus, you got actual responsibilities, you got bills to pay, and you pay them on time, this is the kind of fragrance that I think you would be wearing. The longer that it's sitting on my skin, the more I'm beginning to get that cedarwood note. And the reason I think it's the cedarwood is cedarwood leans very dry. And this one is definitely starting to turn into one of those very dry, earthy style of a fragrance. There's a tiny bit of resinous sweetness that's in the background that I believe is coming from that amber, but it in no way is necessarily a sweet fragrance. I really just believe that that amber and that jasmine are there just to soften the fragrance up just a little bit, not to the point where it takes any of that boldness or masculinity away from the fragrance, but just enough where it makes it a little more pleasant to the nose, a little easier to wear. Now, in terms of when and where I could see this one being worn, like I said, I really could see this one being an all year fragrance. I just would not reach for it in the dead heat of summer. I also think that this fragrance is very versatile in terms of the occasions that you could wear it in. This is definitely one that I would highly recommend for those of you who maybe work in an office setting. Maybe you have to dress up a little bit, but you don't want to reach for a super expensive fragrance. This is a very good, affordable scent that could carry you through a work day, and it would probably last you all day long. The way that oil is sitting on my hand, of course, I have not had the chance to wear this out and really get a full wearing, but the way this oil is sitting on my hand, I really do think that this fragrance is going to last a long time. I can see it being worn to work. I can see it being worn on nights out, maybe even a date night. This is definitely one that I think would get a lot of use in someone's fragrance wardrobe. Of course, it's yet to be determined, but I also believe that this one probably will end up being a very highly complimented fragrance. The reason I think that is it is falling in line with that Creed Aventus style of a DNA, even though it's not necessarily cloning it. And that has always been a super highly complimented fragrance DNA for me, whether that be the actual Aventus, whether that be off non-supremacy or Aventus Cologne or Aventus Absolute. Any of those style of fragrances that carry that DNA always tends to get a ton of compliments. And I really don't believe that my experience with this one will be any different from those other fragrances. As far as price point and where you can typically find this one I usually see online going anywhere from $25 to $45. So in my opinion, that is kind of a big gap in price. So do shop around, make sure you're finding this one for a good price. I found this one at a local rag store for around $29. But if you can find it for close to that $30, since that's kind of the median, I think that this one is well worth the purchase. You're going to get a very versatile scent. It smells very high quality. This does not smell like a $30 fragrance at all. It's fruity, it's woody, it's masculine, it's mature, not in an old man way, but in a kind of a grown and sexy way. I 100% understand why this one was creating the waves that it did, because this one is worth all the hype that it has garnered over the past year. As we head into fall, I can definitely see myself reaching for this a lot because I do like to still reach for somewhat of a fresh fragrance on a day-to-day basis. And this one is going to do that very well for me. It's going to give me that fruitiness, that freshness, but it's also going to get me that depth from the woods and the earthy accords that I look for in a fall fragrance as well. So this one I believe is going to get a lot of wear this fall for me. Overall, I am extremely happy with this one. So glad to have it in the collection. But that is going to be it for this unboxing and my first impressions on Hawas Black. Drop a comment down below and let me know, have you gotten your nose on this fragrance? I would love to know what your thoughts are on it. As always, if you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Those things do a lot to support my channel. And until next time, peace.